Hey people, hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to rank the vanilla starts from worst to best. First of all, this is a subjective list obviously, but I'm going to explain my reasons why. What do I mean by worst? Worst means sort of eclipsed by something else, or potentially just not fun, or whatever metric I subjectively put onto it. And then on best, the opposite of that. So without further ado, I'm going to put timestamps down below. I will explain my reasonings, and also I give you a few strategies of what you might want to do. Without further ado, let's get into it. The Cannibal Hunters. So, not to spoil anything, I know the description is quite deceiving. Playstyle, action, RPG, difficulty, dodgy. And by dodgy, they mean it's completely RNG if you're going to survive this start. It is, no joke, the most difficult start in the game. We'll go over a few things. Okay, you can start out as two characters of whatever race. One of those characters starts out with 20 in all stats, and they both have equipment. However, they are spawned in a cannibal lands, which are some of the most isolated areas in the Kenshi map. So you're miles from a city, in the middle of a cannibal camp. So you're surrounded by 50 bloodthirsty cannibals who want to eat you. Wow. Well, this is really bad. So you can end up just getting eaten. These characters are all mid-level. They have like mid-level stats, so better stats than the guy that you got, right? And you have like no money, no food, and not a pot to shit in, right? So basically you're fucked. It's almost a joke start, if you know what I mean. You can survive the start, perhaps by using the weaker character as bait, as the stronger one runs away. However, it is, I would say, super RNG you even get out of this alive. Another strategy that you could use is you could start as two skeletons and just make your way out there. The cannibals will knock you out. However, you can just get back up again. They're not going to eat you. But the main drawback with that as well is you don't have a repair kit, and there's no skeleton beds for miles. So this is by far the most difficult and challenging starts, and perhaps a bit overtuned, I'd say. Going on to the second worst start, so the Hive Exile. And when I say worst, both of these are great, like roleplay starts. I'm not gonna say like if you can think of a roleplay which your imagination makes these work, you know, go with it, right? But the Hive Exile is probably the second worst start in the game. Why is it the worst start in the game? Because you spawn, you can only play Hive, right? You spawn smack bang in the middle of Hive territory. And the one thing about Hives is the one race that they are racist to is their own race. So you're smack bang in the middle of an area surrounded by beat things ready to eat you alive, and the only towns within a mile's radius will chase you out and beat you with sticks. So yep, you don't start with any equipment. You don't start with the 1,000 cats the Wamderers blesses you with. You're not in a town, you're not in an outpost, you're just smack dang in the middle of monster infested territory, naked, with no clothes on. I personally think that this could have been slightly more balanced, where to perhaps give him a shirt, give him a Hive shirt, maybe a lamp of radiance or something. Like, the idea is you're a Hive that got kicked out of the tribe. That doesn't mean you're broke, poor, and clothless, you know? Maybe give them a chew stick, you know? Personally, I just think it's a bit too overclocked in the harness. If you were going for the Hive Exile roleplay, I personally think you would maybe just go for Wamderer or something like that, or one of the more easier starts. But yeah, because of this, I would say this is the second worst start in the game. The Holy Sword. Okay, so now we're going from ridiculously hard for no reason to hard, but there is a small ray of hope, I guess. Perhaps this is arguably the hardest start in the game. It's debatably harder than the other ones, but it's all down to your opinion. So, what does the Holy Sword get you? You start with the Wanderer's Start, though your locations are somewhat minimized to not UC and not Holy Nation. And you start out with a sword of that's one of a kind, that's the second best in the game quality, but you start out with minus 100 relations with Holy Nation and United States. Now, you might say to yourself, cool, I'm a badass. I'm a dude with a holy sword. I'm awesome or whatever. Who gives a fuck about being hated by the Holy Nation? Fuck those guys and fuck United Cities. They're slavers. I think that personally, having a bounty with these two factions and having minus 100. Minus 100 means is unrecoverable. You can't go to a pacifist and cure it with any amount of money. So you will never potentially ever be neutral with any of these factions or allied. So that's a big thing. Another thing is you can't like recruit someone and have them hand in your bounty, for example, because even your buddies that you recruit on your way are going to be hated by these factions. So basically, at the start of the game, you're cutting off 2/3 of the major cities in the game. You know? The only faction that's major that's going to even interact with you is the Shek. And, yeah. So, very difficult for, I'd say, beginning, mid-game, and end-game. Like, if you start Outpost, there's a high potential... There's like a potential that Igor is just going to appear at your fucking door and start killing the shit out of you immediately. So, and that's like one of the hardest challenges in the game. So yeah, Holy Sword. Yeah, you got a cool sword, but everything else about it is fucked. You can make swords, you know, you'll eventually get there. You could go get a slightly better sword. I mean, all the swords that are better than it are one of a kind, but they're quite easy to find. So, yeah, Holy Sword, 3rd worst start in the game. Empire Citizen, 4th worst start in the game. And I'll explain why. So, Empire Citizen. Basically the Wanderer start, but you start in a UC territory. Your starting locations are limited to UC territories. That's it. You start with slightly less money. That's it. So it's really just start to minimize the RNG. Personally, not a favorite start of mine. See, it just feels sort of, I mean, like you can just re-roll Wander enough and you'll eventually get UC. And if you start anywhere, it's not that hard to get to UC, you know? But yeah. Also, you're poor. So there's a high chance that you might just get a bounty for being poor. That's a big problem. So Wanderer, default difficulty. What else can I say? Mid, can be any race of the game. You start off at a random location, a random outpost within the game, with 1,000 cats, and yeah, it's very mid. You can be any race in the game. There's not really much I can say on this other than you don't have any of the quirky things the other starts have, or benefits or negatives, you know? Then, Holy Nation Citizen. So, this is a slightly better start for a Holy Nation run. Or, if you're Scorchlander or Greenlander. Why is this? So, instead of the Empire Citizen one, which starts you neutral with the United Cities and the Traders Guild, Holy Nation Citizen starts you off with 15% relations with the Holy Nation, so you're on the progress of building that relationship up with Holy Nation, and they're going to be nicer to you just in general, and they're not going to be like assholes to you as much. You start off with a copy of the Divine Flame, so you're not going to get attacked. You start off in the Holy Nation territory, which is communist, by the way. There's a thing about Holy Nation not a lot of people know, is that you can farm in the Holy Nation territories and they won't kill you for it. You can just go pick up some food and feed yourself. There's not and Holy Nation is also one of their biggest boons is they have one of the biggest food economies in the game. It's partially due to why they're so strong in the game is they have some of the best farmlands in the game. So yeah, you start off in the safest location in the game, set up with one of the more dangerous factions in the game, and you have infinite food. So it's hard to lose with Holy Nation Citizen. The only thing is you can't be a skeleton, you can't be a hive. So it is what it is. So the Wandering Trader starts you off in UC's territory, allied with the Traders Guild, with a pack mule filled with about a few K worth of shit and some drip. You know, it's not high quality drip, but there's some drip. You can be any race in the game, and yeah, this sort of, in my opinion, eclipses the Empire Citizen entirely. Yes, I guess the Empire Citizen is a slightly harder version of this one. The thing about the Traders Guild, though, is it really is something you can just buy into with a few thousand cats. So you're only really like saving yourself some money down the line. Yeah, it's definitely sort of like Wamderer Plus. It's definitely pretty good in general. You get a free pet that you can either kill, skin, or give it and all of this stuff. It eats quite a lot though, so it will be quite difficult to feed, but it's what it is. It's one of the better starts in the game, I would say. This is when it starts getting good, if you know what I mean. So, guy with a dog. Alright, okay, so guy with a dog is one of the best starts in the game because animals are hard to recruit. They're hard to recruit in vanilla. It's difficult to recruit animals in vanilla, so you starting out with a bone dog with quite beefy stats for a child, which is going to slowly snowball just through the passage of time. It's pretty good. And obviously you can just start out with like a skeleton, and then you can just give all your food to your dog or whatever. Really depends on what you want to do with it. But guy with a dog is just pretty good. I mean, the bone dog's quite good. Good role play. Not any real drawbacks to it. Just Wanderer Plus in a lot of ways. It's sort of like Wanderer's Trader, but the pack mule is just not the same worth as the bone dog. Both animals can be quite expensive, and bone dogs are just quite good in general, if you know what I mean. And it makes like a good companion for your entire run. It's quite cool, and getting an animal is actually quite cheesy and weird and unintuitive anyway, so starting off with one is quite cool. Rock Bottom. Okay, let's go with Rock Bottom. So Rock Bottom is basically you just start near Shobotai, generally with one arm. A lot of people like this is supposed to be the very hardest start in the game, but you don't really need an arm at the end of the day. It's not a super massive drawback, and you're going to live. It's not like Cannibal Hunters where you're spawned and you're going to be eaten in like a few minutes and there's a high chance that you're going to die. And as you learn the game, as you start to solve the Rubik's Cube of Kenshi and you start figuring things out, you eventually come to a conclusion that limbs are based, prosthetic limbs are based, especially XLR, skeleton, etc. And losing limbs is actually a lot harder than you think. Especially in certain characters with high limb health, like skeletons, for example. So, starting off with a limb removed, in terms of like, especially skeletons, is actually pretty good, because the only way to like reliably remove limbs in a safe scenario is with the peeler system, or being eaten by fogmen, and then like saving someone. And you can't get skeletons to be eaten by fogmen. So in terms of starts, I just think it's very good. Gives you a lot of role play, gives you something to work with, gives your create a character something unique, and sort of sets you up for success later on, because you don't have to wait for that one RNG limb loss. And if I'm correct, it's the left arm, which is the one that's not attacked least, so it's the best arm to lose as well. So yeah, that's my opinion on it. I think it's one of the better. I think we're in the top 5 right now, and this is in the 5th top easiest and best starts in the game, I would say. And then I think 4th, Son of a Captain. So remember when I was talking about the Trader one and Citizen one? So this is like those on steroids. So you start off as the son of a samurai captain. So you start off 100 relations with UC and minus 100 with Holy Nation. Now, why would you want to join UC in the first place? Well, because they're one of the only major factions that allow mixed race. So if you're going mixed race, you might want to side with UC. And this starts you out maxed out relations with UC. And the one faction that hates mixed races, Holy Nation, and you're pissed off with them. So yeah, this is like Empire, Citizen, Wandering Trader, and Son of a Captain all sort of do the same thing, but they're all sort of worse than this. Getting your relationship up with UC to 100 is a lot harder than getting your Traders Guild relationship up, basically. Starting out with minus 100 relationship with Holy Nation isn't that bad when you're a Hive or a Skeleton or, you know, whatever, a Shek, you know? So it ends up just being one of the better starts in the game, and that's why it's up here so high. It's basically like the Wandering start on steroids for UC. So yeah, this is where I am. I think it's like my 4th best start in the game. Number 3, Nobodies. So this is the Wanderer start times 5. Now, why is this the best start? Well, you have 5 guys that you can build a story for. You can make your own characters for up in your head. You can give them their own personalities. They can do whatever they want. They don't have their neutral relationship with anyone. You don't have to worry about anything. And you've got power in numbers, you know? Another thing about it is, well, some races are more limited than others. There's only 3 guaranteed skeleton recruits in the game, and a bajillion Greenlanders and a bajillion Scorchlanders, and I think about 12 Hives and Shek. Well, I think there's like 24 Shek as well, actually. So being able to pick your race for 5 characters is sort of a big thing. And if you go look at my racial tier guide, maybe you want to start with 5 skeletons, because skeletons are the best race in the game. They don't need to eat, they don't need to sleep, and they're quite limited. So you could start with 5 skeletons and have this team of skeletons, and more than like 1 or 2 skeletons is sort of OP. I'm just gonna say that out loud. Like, once you get access to those skelly beds, the game's solved. You've got an infinite army of immortal demigods who are just going to run at your problems endlessly, you know? So yeah, for whatever run you're going for, all Shek, all Hive, all Skeleton, all Greenlander, all Scorchlander, the amount of creativity this allows you to do and stuff like that is just sort of unmatched, and it's one of the more easy, cheesier starts to the game, I'd say. Slaves! So, slaves, why is it the 2nd best start in the game? Well, this is probably the best early game training that you can do in the game. It's only available to humans and Shek and Hive, However, this is probably the most stress-free, easiest way to get 2 roided out, super strong flesh characters. How? Why? Well, slaves spawns you in the middle of Rebirth, which is the Holy Nation slave camp. And you're basically an NPC. So you can just toggle on your NPC actions and you will just behave like an NPC mining for copper for the Rebirth. And you'll just infinitely gain strength and toughness and athletics, etc., and laboring, etc., as your slave masters beat you and you just sort of do your thing. You can leave the game, come back, you'll be roided up to the gills. It does take a little bit of player knowledge, but you can do things like stockpile shackles and other things to increase your carry weight and make it so you're getting really, really toughed out. So for a really, like, if you're looking for like a start where you have a cool backstory and you have this roided out dude, or you want to give like a storyline to your roided out, create a character, you know, this is a great start, you know. And as it says, it's 2 guys, so you can sort of like work on how you want to get out of here. To be honest, I believe you can just run out of Rebirth if you have high enough athletics. You leave the game on for a day, you'll have a high enough athletics just to leave Rebirth. But another neat thing about this start is because you start off as a slave, when you leave Rebirth, you become an ex-slave. So when you're an ex-slave, you get the ex-slave status. So when you go to the anti-slavers, right, you can ask their leader to remove that status, and you will join the anti-slavers and get a reputation bonus. So like those other starts with high reputation with other factions, not only does this start with a reputation with a faction, but it's a completely new faction that's unrelated to any of the other starts in the game, purely unique to it, if you know what I mean. So this is by far my second best start to the game, and one of the best starts to the game for many reasons. And finally, for the definitively best start in the game with no equal, Freedom Seekers. So what is Freedom Seekers? It's basically like if you took like Holy Sword, or if you took Holy Sword and fused it with Nobodies. So let's like put it plainly. You get 5 guys, all with backpacks full of building equipment, food, and stuff like that, and 1 guy with a high bounty with the Holy Nation. And as we know, Holy Nation hates pretty much all the races in the game. So a lot of races don't give a fuck about having a high bounty with the Holy Nation. Though, here's the thing. You don't start with a low relation with Holy Nation. So, for instance, see if you were starting with a party of Greenlanders, right? You could get one of your Greenlanders to hand in that bounty, and then break them out, etc., you know? That's a potential thing that you could do there, and get the 20k bounty. But also, you start out with, let's say, 20k of cats worth of equipment off the get-go in an outpost where you can just sell it all. Now, you might be like, well, I don't want to start with 6 guys. 6 guys are too much to handle and too much to juggle. Well, remember what I said about the Nobodies and race selection, the limited amount of skeletons and stuff like that? But I'm going to show you how you play this start solo, right? And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about when I say this. So I'm just starting a Freedom Seekers start. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what races they're going to pick me. I don't know what outposts they're going to give me. And I'm going to do it if I want it to be a solo character, right? Right, so I'm in the hook. I'm in this town, so I'll just go over here. So I have sold out the shopkeep. But so look at that, 17k caps. It just took me going into the shop and unloading, right? And you might have seen some of the things that I was selling was like building materials and stuff like that. Enough building materials for you to potentially buy like maybe a building in this outpost and just rebuild it instantly. But another thing, you're like, I know that I was going to answer the question like, well, what if I want to be a solo guy or something like that, you know? So you've got the option of this guy who has 25 in these stats, 20, got a lot of like pre-trained stats. But and he has a bounty to the Holy Nation. But say you didn't want a bounty to the Holy Nation, well, you could just kick him out your party. You can even kick everyone out your party, and boom, you're a solo character now with 17k. You could even take them out to the barn and just start attacking them for XP because they're all level 1s and 0s. So yeah, so this is why I say this is undoubtedly the best start in the game, both for like money, both for squad versatility. You could pick and choose how many of the 6 characters you want. You don't start out like you're not in any negative relationships with any factions. You start off with like quite a lot of money. You could go buy your way into the Traders Guild, for an example. Just like the traders start. You can be any race you want. Sometimes it's better to start off in an outpost, arguably, than one of the major cities, I'd say. Yeah, this is why I think that this is the best start for all purposes. All purposes, be it solo play, be it group play, be it squad play, be it role play. I'm not saying that the other starts don't have the purposes. Like, I'm not saying that you might not want to like pick the hard starts, but if I was going to pick the hard starts, I'd probably just maybe pick the like rock bomb, you know, or a Wamderer or something like that. Those are nice challenge runs. I think the Cannibal Hunters a bit too heavy, Hive Exile a bit too heavy, and I also feel like Holy Sword is a bit of a newbie trap, personally. Anyway, these are my thoughts and opinions on the vanilla starts of Kenshi, ranking them worst to best in the game. I was thinking for maybe my next video, I'll talk about the best best starting town or outpost in the game. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. It means so much to me. And I'll see you next time.